Well, for more on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, let's bring in James Smith, a lecturer in humanitarian policy and practice at University College London. James, thank you very much for your time. Let me start by asking about these 400 now aid seekers reportedly killed by Israeli forces. This appears to be becoming more and more common. What's going on here?
It is becoming more and more common. And what we're seeing now, and indeed what we've seen over the last several months, is a military entity, the Israeli military, acting and behaving with near complete impunity. What we're seeing with respect to the attacks on the aid convoys and the attacks on people seeking aid from those convoys is not only a form of physical warfare or physical violence, but of psychological warfare as well. It's a very similar sort of military strategy, if I can even call it that, as we're seeing with attacks on the health system and hospitals and healthcare workers. Humanitarian organizations, humanitarian convoys, essential aid trucks, in the same way as hospitals, clinics and healthcare workers are protected under international humanitarian law. For the Israeli military to attack aid convoys and to attack people seeking aid, not only is that a breach of international humanitarian law, but it's a way of telling the Palestinian people that nowhere is safe for them. And at no moment will they be safe, even when they're seeking food to stave off hunger.
And James, let's talk about that preliminary ruling in South Africa's ICJ case. The court has ordered Israel to prevent incitement to genocide and to provide humanitarian aid. I mean, why have we seen no significant change here from Israel since?
Israel knows that it can behave as it likes. Even in the last couple of days, we have seen the US government, President Biden, continue to state his effectively unfettered support for Israel and for Israel's military activities across occupied Palestine. The Israeli military and the Israeli state knows that it can behave as it likes with next to no meaningful repercussions. There will be, as far as they're concerned, no meaningful sanctions, no meaningful political or economic pressure put on it by states with the power and with the influence to do so. And by that, I mean largely the US government, but of course, several other influential European and global North states. It's countries like South Africa and a small minority of others who have applied pressure and who have stated that they will continue to apply pressure. One of the major problems with the ICJ process is that whatever the ICJ rules, there are very limited means by which their measures can be enforced with any great significance.
James, aid is trickling in. I think it's fair to use the word trickling. We understand a ship carrying 200 tons of aid, though, is now en route to Gaza from a Mediterranean port. This is the start, apparently, of a maritime corridor. Every little helps, of course, but this isn't an efficient way of delivering aid. Why is Israel getting in the way of the more efficient delivery, which is trucks crossing borders?
Israel has effectively made clear, at times explicitly, but certainly in its actions, that it wants to make Gaza unlivable for the Palestinian people. On that basis, they don't want to allow aid to enter in a way that life could be sustained, and certainly not in a way that life could be sustained with any sense of dignity. As a result, they have curtailed land access. As your correspondent in Gaza has mentioned, there has not been a day since October 7th that the 500 trucks, the minimum of 500 trucks, have entered into the Gaza Strip. And now we have this situation whereby aid is being dropped into Gaza and aid is moving by sea, in a way that I would describe, and as others have described in other contexts, as effectively a humanitarian alibi. And by that we mean, and the terminology is used to describe the ways in which, as you say, a trickle of humanitarian aid is used to disguise political and military violence.
James, the responsibility for making sure the people of Gaza have enough food and enough water, well, it lies with the occupation force, which is Israel here. Why has this been handed over, in essence, to the international community? Should Israel not be held accountable?
In short, absolutely. Israel has the primary responsibility as the occupying force. It had that responsibility prior to October 7th as the de facto occupying force in Gaza, and certainly as the occupying force in the West Bank. Again, as I've mentioned, what we're seeing here is a state and a military entity that believes it can act with total impunity. This is a situation that has been enabled by decades of repeated international failure to hold Israel to account for its flagrant breaches of international law. And what Israel is continuing to do now is exactly what it's been allowed to do for several decades.
James, thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. James Smith speaking to us live there from London.